right now, I'm saying to people, you should invest in property right now, October 2023. Why? Because I'm fairly certain that the house prices next year are going to go up.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rohan Plus One show. I'm your host, Rohan. If you're new to this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you're a regular viewer, thank you for your support so far. Today in the studio, my plus one is the founder of the company Lifestyle Property People. Introducing Shiv Haria. Hello.
Hi, Rohan. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am really good. I'm really excited to be here. I think it's such a great thing that you're doing. And I was just saying to you that I think that the ability for people to be creators in this day and age is like amazing. And the fact that you're taking advantage of that opportunity is fantastic.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
So, let's start with what is, Lifestyle Property People exactly?
Okay, so Lifestyle Property People is a company that I founded back in 2016. And it started off because I was investing in property and I was from London, I was investing in properties in Leeds, and people were asking me, oh, like, why are you investing in Leeds? And I said, oh, well, the returns are a lot better. That's why I'm investing in Leeds. So they said, oh, can you show me? And when I showed them, they were like, well, can you help me do that? I want to do the same thing. I want to create passive income. And I said, okay, well, yeah, fine, I'll do that. And naturally, it sort of grew into a company. And so in 2016, we started a company that basically did that for other people. And I was charging fees for it. And initially, I was like, this is, the first person I did it for, I charged them £1,000. And I was like, I just made £1,000.
Yeah.
I don't even know how I could do that, but £1,000 was crazy for me back then. And then the second guy was like, oh, I'll charge you £2,000. I was just coming up with numbers out of like nowhere. I was just like, yeah, 2,000, 3,000. And we just kept charging more and more over the years. And ultimately, the reason why we were charging more and more is because we were trying to find the point at which supply equals demand. I studied economics at university. And so as a result of that, the one thing that I learned from that was that where supply equals demand, that's your price. So I was like, okay, well, supply is me. The demand is the people that are wanting to buy. So the way I know where supply equals demand is where basically they don't want to pay any more money for it. And now we're a group of companies. So there's Lifestyle Property People, there's Lifestyle Refurbishments, there's Lifestyle Professional Services, and Lifestyle Lettings and Management. That's the Lifestyle Property Group. And there's another couple of companies that I am also involved with at the moment.
And what made you want to branch out into like multiple companies?
Well, I think that was more of there was two things there. One is that naturally after we offered the service that we were offering, which is to find people a property, they were like, well, this is great, but can you introduce me to a solicitor? And I was like, yeah, we could introduce you to a solicitor. And then they were like, well, can you help me to purchase the property? And then we helped them purchase the property. Then they said, oh, well, can you help me refurbish the property? And then we're like, yeah, obviously we can do that, no problem. And then they were like, well, can you help me rent the property? And so there's all these additional services that we were kind of adding on. And at the time, we were just doing it all in Lifestyle Property People. But then over time, it just became more, I suppose, tax efficient to have it as multiple companies because they were all doing different things. Our main company, Lifestyle Property People, is VAT registered. The other ones aren't VAT registered. And the advantage of that is that when we sell our services to our clients, if we, for example, the refurb services, we don't have to charge them VAT on it because it stays under a certain threshold in terms of the revenue. And as a result, they don't have to pay an extra 20% on that cost. So I think it's more a logical choice to have it as multiple companies rather than like any other reason for it.
Okay, and I guess with this, people can just come to you and you kind of take care of everything, right?
That's it. I think the fact is that what I realize is that people, especially people down in London, everyone has heard of this term called the rat race. And we all just feel like we're stuck in this rat race and we're like going round and round trying to, get our job done. And then at the evenings, we've got to like cook and be with our partner. We've got to, sort our kids out if we've got kids. On the weekends, we then have to like look after our parents, go and see people. Like all the time gets taken up before you know it. So where's the time for you? There's no real time for you. When I say you, I mean like your health and your fitness, but then also your finances. And what usually happens is people get to about mid-40s and they go, do you know what? I should probably start doing some investment. But really, like the answer is, if you can structure it so you do your investments when you're 20 rather than when you're 40, you've already had 20 years worth of growth that you benefited from. And then you're set for life. Whereas if you do it when you're 40, you then have to wait until you're 60 before you're sort of set for life. So I think the advantage is that we need to get people to invest sooner. And what I wanted to do was when we asked people like, why are you not doing this sooner? A lot of the answer was, well, like Leeds is far away. You know, it takes 3.5 hours to drive there from North London if you're in North London. And so people don't have time to go up and down, as well as that people don't know how to do it. Like if you've never invested in property, how do you know how to invest in property? If you've never negotiated, how do you know how to negotiate? If you've never done retail, how do you know how to do retail? So there's all these skills that people don't have. And then on top of that, they don't have any other relationships. So over how many years it's been, the last 7 8 years, we've built all these great relationships, not just with the estate agents who can obviously make sure we get the best possible deals, but also with the builders so we can get refurbish the properties, with the solicitors and all these kind of things. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that people don't have available to them, and then because of that they don't invest. So what they need is they need someone to just say, look, just pay me some money and I'll just do everything for you. And when we say everything, we mean everything. And there's only 3 things that our clients actually have to do. The first thing, which are all things that only they can do, and hopefully they're not going to be very time consuming. The first is they need to sign some contracts, whether it's for us, whether it's for the solicitor, the mortgage advisor, etc. The second is they've got to transfer some money. Obviously they've got to pay fees for things. And the third is they've got to confirm that rent has been paid. If they do those 3 things, then they will end up with a buy-to-let property at the end. And all 3 of those things, you can understand, don't actually take a huge amount of time. So they can just, once they've decided they want to go ahead, they spend about, in total, maybe an hour with all of those 3 things. And they'll know that they'll get the properties at the end.
Okay, so it's quite a quick, not like kind of a quick turnaround.
In terms of their time involvement, it's very, very quick.
Their time.
Now, unfortunately, buying properties does take some time. It's a long and cumbersome process. So when you buy shares on the stock market, you can basically go buy, and that instant you'll own that share, or within 10 seconds you'll own that share. With property, if you click buy, it could easily take you 6 months before you buy it, and then you've got to refurbish it, and then you've got to rent it. So you're looking at 6 to 8 months before you actually start receiving any money from it. So it does take a long, long time. And that's why some people sort of tend to favor one investment over the other. But there are advantages and disadvantages to both. And that's why people generally, when they're investing, they should have a holistic approach to investing. They should make sure that they can have a diversified basket of investments. They can have stocks and shares. They can also have some private loans, for example, which are much more higher risk. They've got bonds, they've got cash, they've got property. So a whole bunch of stuff. And the reason why is because at the end of the day, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. And the best way to avoid unexpected disasters is to say, well, I'm going to invest across a bunch of stuff. And then if something happens with my share portfolio, it's okay because I've got the others. Something else with my properties, it's okay because I've got the others. So that's why people should diversify. Yeah.
And what was your motivation behind setting this kind of up?
Yeah, so I was saying to you earlier when we were grabbing a coffee that I think that there's 2 types of entrepreneurs. There's the one type, and we've seen a proliferation of those in the last 5 years or so, is creators. Creators are creative people, and I don't just mean creative like people that do art, for example. Creative as in their mind thinks creatively. They can create ideas, they can create stuff, and those people are amazing at creating. And sometimes those people may not have been good at school because they're creating and they get sucked away by creating stuff and they forget to actually do their exams and learn, revise for tests and stuff. But they're creators. The other type of entrepreneur is a problem solver. And a problem solver just goes, well, what's the problem? How do I solve that problem? So for me, it was, I'm certainly more of a problem solver than a creative. I can have ideas, but that's not what I do all day long. What I do all day long is, if there's an issue, if there's a problem, I always think to myself, how can we solve this problem? And not just how can we solve it and make sure it never happens again? Because what we want to do is we don't want to solve this problem. And then let's say we spend 2 hours solving this problem. Next week, if we want to spend another 2 hours solving that problem, it's we're just wasting our time. We want to solve a problem, spend 3 hours on it today, so we make sure it never happens again. But then we never actually have to touch that problem ever again. And then we can continue growing on our successes and building assets, basically. So I think there's 2 types of entrepreneurs. Then I think that your question's well, what made me get into this? And I don't know if other people that you've spoken to have a similar sort of story, but it wasn't like I was thinking to myself, my God, one day I'm going to be rich and start up a business and do all this kind of stuff. I think that's what maybe creators do. They're oh yeah, they've got these ideas, it's gonna be brilliant. I didn't have many ideas. I was just working for a company. And then my mum had a heart attack in 2013. And when she had a heart attack, I started to just think to myself, because she was at home or she was in the hospital, I started thinking, hold on a second, if she's not earning any income because she's not at work, then how are we going to pay for milk and bread and eggs and like, you know, food and bills and stuff. And no one that I spoke to in my family had the answer to that question. And it was just because like they'd never been faced with that challenge before. So I thought, okay, well, there must be somebody who knows the answer to this question. And I started looking at, just observing, like, what do other people do? And very quickly I came to the realization that other people invest. And when they invest, they can then create this passive income stream. That means that they don't have to work every single day. And I got obsessed by that idea. And I think this is the trait of an entrepreneur. You get obsessed by something. I got obsessed by the idea of like creating passive income and creating it to a level where I was like, if I can do this in the next like 5 years or whatever, or even 10 years, whatever, I don't have to work for the rest of my life. There's loads of people out there who like, they'll start working at say 25, for example, and then they'll work for 40 years to 65 and they retire at 65. It's like, even if I could do it in 30 years, then I'd still be winning, but I'd probably be able to do it in like 5 or 7 years rather than in 30 years. And that's ultimately like what's happened is because I realized that we need to go and make passive income, I then started to do it for myself. And then when I was doing it for myself, I was just posting it on social media, and a friend said to me, oh, what are you doing? Can you help me do the same thing? And that's kind of how the business started. So it wasn't like I was trying to make loads of money or even that I was trying to solve anyone's problem. It was just somebody asked me, and then someone else asked me. And before I knew it, I was like, well, I might as well help people. And then if I was helping people, I was like, well, I don't have time to do all of these things. So maybe I just hire somebody. And, you know, all of the things that you do, the first time you do it, it's really nerve-wracking. Like, how do I hire someone? I don't know how to hire someone. You know, we just took somebody on board. And, of course, the first person we hired was like, okay, well, you know, I know this guy, or this guy's a friend of a friend or something like that, so we'll hire that person. Eventually, you've got to become a bit more coordinated in how you do those things. But, yeah, that's basically how it started.
And was it quite difficult at the start, like in terms of, you know, having like getting money, you know, to start this? Was it quite difficult?
Yeah, so to be honest with you, like I like if you think about a product that you're trying to build, yeah. So you're trying to build this phone.
Yeah.
When you try and build the phone, you're like, oh, okay, cool. I've got to have an idea. I've got to solve a problem. I then have to go and get some funding from somewhere. I then have to spend a lot of that funding to build this out. But with what I was doing, it wasn't necessarily like I had to go and get a huge amount of funding, because I was already, well, this is the important bit. It wasn't like I thought, my God, this would be great, let's start a business. It's because I was buying properties for myself already. And so I already had a little bit of income coming in. And when I went to do it for other people, I was just using my own time initially. Because I was using my own time, like, what was the cost? There is no real cost. It's just the cost of my own time. And then when I hired somebody, I only hired somebody when I knew that I could afford to do it, because we had like other like clients coming in and we were taking their money. So I was like, oh, right, yeah, we can now afford to hire someone. So I think our growth has probably been a lot slower. And actually, when I look back on it now and I think to myself, like, imagine if I was doing this again, what advice would I give to myself? Is like, don't be so scared. It's at those early years, I think it took us like, you know, probably like 4 or 5 years to get off the ground and like actually make a business out of it, where we've got employees and all that kind of stuff. And the reason why it did that is because I was just so afraid of failing. I was like, I don't even know why. I mean, I think it was like, oh, you know, I've built something, I don't want to lose it. So even if it was just like, I remember a time in 2018, so 2 years after we started, somehow we got ourselves into 40 grand worth of debt. I think it was 40 or 50 grand worth of debt. And at the time I was like, oh my God, like, and I'm sure you're sitting there going right now, like 50 grand of debt. That's a lot of debt.
Yeah.
It's a lot of debt. But when you start to understand the business mechanism and what it's like to be an entrepreneur, it's like, yeah, like literally one day you could have 50 grand worth of debt. In 3 days time or 3 weeks time or 3 months time, you could have 50 grand worth of profit. Like, it's just the way that it swings. And what I got fixed on was like, oh my God, we've got 50 grand worth of debt. How are we going to get rid of this? Because I didn't want to lose what I had. Even at those early stages. And now when I look back on it, I was like, I didn't really have very much, but I was just in this mentality of like, I don't want to lose it. So I think now when I look back on it, I think I wish to myself that I'd done it quicker. And the way to do it quicker is to realize that failure is just like pit stops on the way to success. So a lot of the time, I think for me, I was thinking, well, if success is in front of me, failure is behind me. I don't want to go that way. I want to go this way. And I think a lot of people do think like that. What I've learned over the years is that it's not like that. You're starting here, success is in front of you, and all through the route to get to success, there's going to be failures. That's how you learn. Yeah. So there's a failure over there, so you now turn right. And then when you go over there, oh, look, there's a failure over there. So then you turn left, and it starts to correct itself to get you to success.
Okay, yeah, nice. And were there, so, you know, you're talking about your debt and stuff, but were there any other challenges along the way?
Oh, so many challenges. So I said to you earlier about like being a problem solver. And the reason I say that is because this is literally just like one challenge after another, after another, after another. There is no end to the number of challenges that you're going to face being an entrepreneur in any field, I don't think, because once you've solved this problem, you'll then have the next problem to solve. And that's a sign that you're improving and you're advancing and you're growing up and whatnot. And remember, like, let's say you make 10 grand profit. Cool. Then you have 10 grand problems. Then you make 100 grand profit. Then you have 100 grand problems. Then you make £1 million profit. You've got £1 million problems. Your problems just get bigger.
Yeah.
It's not like your problems get smaller. I think a lot of people, again, another thing that people misconception is that when I have more money, everything will be better. It's not that. That's just not the way it works. When you have more money, you'll just have more problems. I was just thinking about like Jay-Z and Beyonce, for example. They got tons of money. They just have way more problems, but they have the mindset to be able to deal with those problems. And they always said, like, people always said to me, but I didn't really understand it at the time, was the journey of entrepreneurship is not so much about like the money that you're going to make. It's the person that you're going to become by doing it. And that means like the mindset you're going to develop, the way that you're going to like attack problems that come at you. And, you know, sometimes it's like, okay, well, there's a problem there, but it's too small to solve. Like, I've got bigger problems to solve. I don't need to solve that one. And sometimes those small problems, they just disappear.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to be very mindful about where you spend your time. And eventually, like, certainly where I am right now, I realize that I can do anything, but I can't do everything. And there's only a certain amount of time that I have in my life. And there's only a certain amount of time that I want to spend working, like outside of like my health and my fitness and my relationships and all that stuff. So there's only a certain amount of time I want to spend working. So I have to focus on solving the biggest problems that I can, that are most meaningful for me. When I say biggest, I don't just mean like size of problem.
Yeah.
I mean like ones that are most meaningful for me. And that's absolutely like the direction that I'm going to continue going in.
No, yeah, I understand. And talking, you know, about like working for your like doing your company and stuff. How many days were you working at the start, and how has that changed?
Yeah, really good question. So I think at the start, you have to have this mindset of like, you know, they say like hustle culture. It is, everything's hustle culture, because you're like, you don't know, like, I don't, you know, where your next meal's coming from, but you don't know where your next client's going to come from, all that kind of stuff. It's unpredictable. The whole thing is, you've got all these costs, you've got no revenue, whatever. So it is this hustle culture of just getting by. And actually, there's a really good word I heard the other day. It's from India. It's called jugaad. Have you heard of this word?
No.
So this word means like just getting by, just doing what you need to do to get by. So imagine like our challenge is that, you know, we haven't got, I don't know, electricity for this mic. So they say, well, we'll figure out some way of getting electricity. Like, oh, maybe we'll just take the batteries out of that thing and then put that thing in, you know, we'll figure out some way of getting by. And that's like hustle culture. When I started, I was probably working, well, no, not probably, I was working basically 7 days a week. And it certainly for like 5 or 6 of those days, it would have been like 6 in the morning. I remember this. It was like 6 in the morning until like 11 at night. In 2015, I moved up to Leeds to start doing this like as a proper business. And when I started doing that, I didn't know anyone in Leeds. I rented a little room in a HMO in like a student accommodation. And I was paying £300 per month on it, including bills, everything. It was crazy. It was really cheap. And I was like, I need to make the most return for that 300 quid that I'm paying. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to wake up at 6 every day. I'm going to go to sleep at 11 every day. Between those hours, between 6 and 11, I'm just going to do work. And because I didn't have any friends or family in Leeds, I didn't have any distractions. So for a whole month, I'd do work. Then I'd go home. Then I'd like do all my washing, then, like a student. Then I'd come back up to Leeds. So I'd go home on a Friday. I'd stay for the weekend and then come back up on a Sunday night and then do the whole thing again, like over and over and over again. So it was a lot of hours. And I think when you start, or certainly when I started, I thought that that's what was expected of me. Is that I've got to put the hours in, because I understood that entrepreneurship is hard work. Going back to like problem solvers versus creators, because I wasn't creative, I didn't realize that there's creative ways that you can play the game. I just thought you just have to work hard. Then eventually, as I've kind of gone into it more, I've realized that you don't have to work all hours of the day. Like the whole point of entrepreneurship is that you get to create the life that you want rather than the life that other people decide that you should have. You know, why do we have to work 40 hours a week? Who came up with that rule? Where did the number 40 go? Why not 42? Why not 18? Where's 40? Just somebody one day said 40 is the number, and all of a sudden we all work 40 hours a week. So it's not what I want, it's what somebody else wanted that now, and you know, a lot of people end up working 40 hours a week. So I think it's about crafting the life that you want. And I think one of the things that I was just thinking about, so this, you know, we're now recording this podcast around October time, and I'm starting to think about my next year. starting to plan for the next year, and I always ask myself the questions of like, well, what do I want my next year to look like, and what do I want the next 5 years to look? Where do I want to be in 5 years' time, and what do I want my next year to look like? There was an interesting thought that came to my mind, which was, I find myself in a position where, although I have a team and we've got, the business is working very well, I've started up other businesses, and now I'm like, I just don't have enough time to do the things I want to have. And someone said to me, it's not that you don't have enough time, it's just that whenever you do have more time, you start something else. Like, that's how you're used to operating. So what you need to do is get used to not operating like that. I thought, well, I wonder if I can go down to like 20 hours a week. Right now, I'm probably on about 30 hours a week is what I kind of work, between 10 and 4 every day, roughly. But I thought, I wonder if I can go down to 20 hours a week. So that's kind of like the direction that I'm heading in. And it doesn't mean, less hours. It's less hours, but more value. So what I mean by that is less hours, but now I have a bigger team. And so what I want to be doing is spending my time just doing basically decisions. If I can just make decisions, that's all I have to do. And escalations. There's just two things: decisions and escalations. Decisions is, we've got to do something. Right, cool. Do that, whatever it might be. Escalations is, we have a problem. The team don't know how to solve it. So they come to me and they say, can you help us to solve this? Right, I'll help to solve that. So those are the two things I want to be doing. And everything else, I need somebody else in the company to be doing it. Whether it's my PA, whether it's any of the team members, the marketing manager, delivery manager, finance manager, or any of their teams as well, somebody else needs to be doing it. And if there isn't someone else to do it, it's because there's a hole in the business. So we need to go and hire that person to say, come and do this job, because there's a hole in the business. But yeah, I started off working all hours of the day. I think, and I thought that was right. I thought that was, it wasn't like I was like, oh God, I've got to work all hours a day. I was just doing it, and I liked doing it. But now I also realized, there are other things outside of work. There's a really good saying I saw the other day. It says, we're not just born to pay bills and die. It's like, we're born for more than this. And, this year, I was saying to you earlier, like, I've done a lot of traveling, and I really love doing that. And then I've spent a lot of time with my family, with my partner and whatnot. And there's a lot of other things outside of just working that I want to do. Not to mention, like, I think initially people work because they're like, I need to make some money. And then once they've made, I talk to all of our clients, and they always say the same thing. When I say to them, why do you want to invest in property? They say, oh, well, because I want to become financially free. I say, right, why do you want to become financially free? And they say, I think I asked you these questions. They said, why do you want to become financially free? And they say, oh, because I want to be able to do what I want to do. And I say, okay, great. What is that? And literally everybody looks at me blank-faced. You know why? Because they haven't thought about it. They haven't thought about what they want to do. Everyone has this idea that they want to spend their time doing the things that they want to do, but no one's ever thought about what they actually want to do. And that's something that I think we need to change in our world. But the point is, like, you start off and you start to a business to make money so that you can have the time to do what you want to do. Why don't you just start doing the things that you want to do rather than like taking this unnecessary first level?
Yeah, because I think I remember when I met you for the first time, you also kind of like picture the graph. Like, I think if you said, like being an entrepreneur, your finances, I think, go like that. But if you work for someone else, it kind of goes like that. It kind of like ticks off, right?
Well, and I think the important thing is that you've got to realize that when you do work for somebody else, those people who work for other people, they get a much steeper increase in their pay. That's why when you see other people, like your friends, for example, that work in other companies, in professional companies, their income will be higher than yours, probably. Certainly mine was when I was at that stage. Their incomes were way higher than mine. And I was like, oh, but I've got to keep up with them. I've got to keep up with them. And I was torn because I was like, on one hand, it's like, I want to do this property thing. On the other hand, like, my income's not going to get there anytime soon. So their income goes like that. But then for an entrepreneur, it goes completely the opposite way. And there's this saying that says an overnight success takes 10 years. You got to work for 10 years and then you become an overnight success. It is literally, I mean, whether it's 10 years or 8 years, 7 years, whatever, it's different industries. But the point is, like, you spend a lot of time just grafting and just putting the work in. And then something happens overnight. Something happens and things start to go right. And then you start to get onto that exponential part of the curve. And when you're on that exponential part of the curve, then it's like, cool, like, you're off. You don't need to worry anymore. I think it was Warren Buffett who said, whatever you do in your life, whatever you do, just make your first 100 grand. Just make it doesn't matter if you've got to beg, borrow, or steal, just make your first 100 grand. He goes, I promise you, once you made your first 100 grand, your million will be so much easier. Like, that's the hardest step, making 100. After you made 100, a million is easy. And then 10 million is easy. and the rest and the rest and the rest. And obviously you decide when you want to stop. But the point is that the hardest step is just getting to 100. And like I said, for an entrepreneur, it is that way, whereas for an employee, it's the other way.
And like now let's talk about, passive income and,
Yeah.
how people can get started. But what is passive income, first of all?
Yeah, really good question. So going back to this idea of like, why do you want to be financially free? I want to be financially free because I want to do all the stuff that I want to do, let alone the fact that no one knows what they want to do. But let's assume that they say, I want to become, I don't know, a wrestler. Cool. So I want to become a wrestler. Why? Because I love wrestling and I love the art of it and I love learning about it and all that kind of good stuff. Perfect. If you love all of those things, then you've got to realize that someone has got to pay for you to be doing that, because in the initial stages of being a wrestler, you're not going to make a huge amount of money. So who's going to pay for rent? Who's going to pay for food? Who's going to pay for your travel? Who's going to pay for all of those memberships to wrestling federations and all that stuff? Who's going to pay for all of that stuff? That's got to come from somewhere. And a lot of those things will be regular expenses. It's not just like, oh, you pay it one off and it's gone. Food, you've got to eat every day. So you've got to pay for food every single day. So all of those expenses, when you're young, it's like, cool, my mum will give me some money, and you live at home, for example, so it's easy. Eventually, you've got to move out of home, and then you've got to be standing on your own feet. And when you're standing on your own feet, you're like, okay, well, how am I going to do this? That's why it's so much easier to be an entrepreneur when you're young, because you don't have very many expenses. As soon as you go out into the world and you've got to pay £1,000 worth of rent every month, you're like, uh-oh, I've got some downside. I need to go and make this money really, really quickly. But the point of passive income is, if you want to go and be a wrestler and you need money to be able to go and do that, passive income is income that comes in without you having to work, without you having to put any effort into it necessarily, like a huge amount of effort into it. So an example of that would be if you bought a fund portfolio, or like stocks and shares, for example, and it gives you dividends. Now, it doesn't give you a huge amount of dividends, but the point is, if you put £100 in, you might get, I don't know, £100, you probably get about £4, something like that, 4%, 5%, something like that. So a year. So it's not a huge amount, but the point is you're getting £4. Let's say £5. Well, if you had 100 of those £100, then you'd get 5 times 100, so you get £500. If you had 1,000, you'd get 5,000. Okay, cool. So that's passive income. The reason why I like property as a means to getting passive income is because it comes in regularly, and because houses, not only am I getting the income from it, but the houses are increasing in value as well. And I read my favorite book. When I first started, I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And if your listeners have not listened to this book, this is the first book you need to read. It helps you to understand the mentality of an entrepreneur. And what you need to realize is that you can either work for somebody or you can work for yourself. And if you work for yourself, there's so much more benefits of doing that. But in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he talks about liabilities and assets. And he says the difference between a liability and an asset is that an asset increases in value and a liability over time, and a liability decreases in value over time. And at the time that I read the book, 2012, I think it was, or 12, 13 time, I had an Audi TT because I'd worked really hard. I was working in a corporate firm or whatever, and I got paid loads of money, and I bought myself this car. I was like, oh, this is amazing. Look at me. Like, none of my friends have this. I was playing that comparison game. Oh my God, none of my friends have this, and I ball around in this TT. It's fantastic. And then I read that book, and it said, over time, liabilities decrease in value. I always thought my car was an asset, but my car's going down in value every time, every day, every time I drive it, it goes down in value. And I was like, that's not what I want. What I want is something that's going to be appreciating in value. So that's why I started buying houses, because you buy houses, then it gives you income, which is the passive income side of things. So I can live my life, but it also increases in value over time. And it means that anytime in the future I want to do more stuff, there's a pot of money there waiting for me. So that's what passive income is, and how you get it is there's lots of different ways. But like I said, the stock portfolio is one thing, property is another one, subscription sites are another one. There's lots of another example could be you go and buy a laundrette's firm. People don't do this anymore because everyone's got a washing machine. But there's a huge number of people that don't have a washing machine at home, so they've got to go to the laundrette. They go there, they put their £1 in or £3 in or however much it is down to do laundry, and they just do the laundry. Now, obviously, you've got to buy all the machines up front. That's the investment part of it. Once you've bought the machines, then every single month you can collect a certain amount of money from that laundrette. Same thing with, sometimes you go and get your money out of an ATM, but sometimes it's a link ATM, or the one that charges you, basically.
Okay, yeah.
Well, the way that works is because someone has bought that ATM and they've put it into a location that they think is going to generate money. So the bank hasn't put it there. They've put it there, and then they make the fees on that. So there's lots of different ways of making passive income. But the reason I like property is because it's set and forget. You set it up once, don't touch it again.
Yeah.
They just keep generating income for you and keep going up in value. So I think that's the reason why passive income is important, is because it helps you to do the thing that you actually want to do. But like I said, people have got to think about what they actually want to do to start with.
And I guess, how can people like think about, you know, what they want to do? You know, how can they find out?
So there's loads of tools these days to think about like what exactly that you want to do. The first thing is, I mean, I said to you earlier today, in any job that you're in right now, don't think of it as that job. Think of it as an opportunity for you to find out what you like and what you don't like. So for example, imagine that you're working in retail. Yeah. You work in retail and you're like, oh gosh, you know, I don't like that I have to work on a Saturday. Great. Get yourself a piece of paper and type in retail at the top, and then do a column and say, what do I like? What do I not like? Not like working Saturdays. What do I not like? Talking to customers. What do I not like? This, dealing with money, whatever it might be. What do I like? I like opening and closing the store. Okay, interesting. What else do I like? I like it when people come and ask me for help. Okay, cool. What else do I like? I like this, I like that. And eventually you start to build a picture. So when I say I like opening and closing stores, yeah, fine, but what is that? Oh, maybe it's the responsibility. Do I like the responsibility of it? Yeah, maybe I like so I like to take responsibility, fine. I like helping people, when they come to me to solve the problem. Okay, maybe I'm a problem solver. Maybe I'm the kind of person, do I like solving problems in any other field? Oh, hold on a second. Whenever, you know, we have a party and there's like, I don't know, drinks missing or glasses missing, I'm the person that goes and finds the glasses. Oh, okay, so I like to solve problems. Then you start to understand you're using, wherever you are right now in life, whatever job you've got, doesn't matter, you're using it as an opportunity to find out more about yourself. And this is probably going far too deep, Rohan, but I think the purpose of life is for you to understand yourself, for you to find yourself, right? Who are you really? And it's by doing these kind of exercises of like, what do I like? What do I not like? You can go on to, there's a website called, actually go to Google and type in Genius U with like uniform, Genius University it's called. And you can do a test. It will take you probably 2 minutes to do this test. It's a personality test, and people who are in professional jobs, they get other personality tests, and they're quite expensive, but this is a free personality test. It will ask you 5 questions, and at the end of 5 questions, it will tell you which personality type you are. That will help you to understand what kind of person are you. And an easy way to do this is to ask yourself 2 questions. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? An introvert is someone who gets their energy from themselves. It's not someone who doesn't like people or doesn't like talking to people. It's someone who gets their energy from themselves. An extrovert is someone who gets their energy from other people. So an extrovert, when they go and they surround themselves with people, they get energized by it. So even though they might have not had a lot of energy before, when they surround themselves with loads of people, they come alive. Yeah. So extrovert or introvert? That's the first question. The second question is, and it's a bit of a harder question, are you a thinker or a doer? And of course, you know, none of these are mutually exclusive. Some people are like, well, I'm not an introvert, I'm not an extrovert, I'm a bit of both. I'm not a thinker, I'm not a doer, I'm a bit of both. You can do a bit of both. It's obviously just a bit, you're well-rounded then, and it's harder. But if you say, okay, I'm a thinker, okay, cool, I'm a thinker. I like to come up with ideas. I like to think of possibilities of you know, problems, solutions to problems. Or I'm a doer. I like to implement stuff. I like to, you know, someone gives me the solution, I go and implement the solution. I like doing that. Or someone gives me the idea and I go and like implement the idea. I like doing that. So by asking those 2 questions, you can then figure out, okay, cool, I'm this kind of person. So for example, I am I'm a bit in the middle of introvert and extrovert, but let's just say, to make this easier, I'm an extrovert. And in terms of thinker or a doer, I'm a doer. So I'm a doer extrovert. If I'm a doer extrovert, that's one personality type. And there's effectively, just imagine there's 4 squares that you can be in. And there's entrepreneurs that exist all the way around these points. There's people that are in this bucket, there's people that are in this bucket, there's people in each one of those 4 buckets. And it helps you to understand, oh, right, you're more like this person. So, and we can understand this in another way. So when you look at, the easy example that comes to my mind is Donald Trump. Regardless of what you think about his policies and stuff, Donald Trump, he really likes doing deals. He's an extrovert, really loud mouthed and all that stuff, and he likes doing deals. He's less of a thinker, and he's more of a doer. So he's what they call it is a deal maker. He's extroverted, and he likes doing deals. He fits into that box, so he's a deal maker. You could be the opposite of that. Could be an introvert and someone who likes thinking, and that person is a mechanic. And a mechanic is someone who, forget like mechanic like as a car, but in their mind, whenever they see a microphone, for example, they try and like, well, I wonder why that bit's connected to that bit. Well, how does this whole thing work? You know, what are the screws here that make it all turn? They like to take it all apart in their mind so they can understand how things work. That's a mechanic personality. So all of these, that Genius U test, I think is like a must. I get everyone to do that test because I think it's so revealing for themselves to find out who they are. There's also one called Moonshot Planner, which I found recently, and that helps you to understand more about, we were talking about like how do you find out what you want to do and why you do what you do. The Moonshot Planner helps you to do that. It uses AI. You input some information and then you click AI and it gives you like a bunch of other answers that are similar to your answer. That helps you to kind of think of other things that could be, other ideas that could be related to the idea that you've put in. And then that way, it generates a sentence for you that tells you this is what your mission is. So I think if you go to Google, there's loads and loads of these kind of like little exercises that you can do. And the fact of the matter is that through the rest of your life, constantly, you're going to be finding little tricks like this to try and help you think about it. But all that this is doing is providing you with information for you to think about. And then what you've got to do is go away and spend some time by yourself thinking about it. And that's the hard bit because a lot of people don't like spending time by themselves thinking about it. And we were just saying earlier, what they do instead of sitting there by themselves thinking about stuff is they watch football or watch the cricket because it's entertainment. Oh, I don't have to think now. It's easy. I can go on, turn my brain off. I can just watch that. That's fine. Obviously, everyone needs to, do that once in a while. But sometimes what we need to do is spend some time just thinking.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, and like, people that want to become entrepreneurs and,
Yeah.
build up a brand for themselves, what are some like mistakes that happen along the journey that people make? Like,
yeah, okay, fine. So I think that the first mistake that I've seen everyone make this mistake, and when I say it, people are going to be like, well, that's not a mistake. You've got to make that mistake to do it. Is people just don't charge enough. You're as an entrepreneur, by definition, you have to make money, not because you want to make money. You have to, because if you cannot fund yourself, you can't keep doing it. This podcast, for example, if you can't fund yourself to do this, you can't keep doing this. So you've got to make some money. So however you make your money, and the answer is for most entrepreneurs, whatever money they're making, they think it covers their costs, but there's loads of things they're not taking into account. What about your accountancy costs? What about tax? What about these things that the cost of your phone, the cost of, you were very kind and bought me a coffee. What about the cost of that coffee? Look, all these things that people don't take into account. So I guarantee you, whatever number that people are charging right now, they're not charging enough. And the next point is the reason they're not charging enough is because they're trying to sell to everyone. And that's another mistake that people make, is they try to sell to everyone. And what really needs to happen is they need to find their niche. They need to find out who they're going to sell to. One of the analogies I use all the time in my business is I say to people that there are people that buy Nissans and there's people that buy Teslas. A Nissan costs 30 grand, a Tesla costs 60 grand. They're both cars. They both have 4 wheels. They both have 5 seats. They both drive you from A to B. Why are you going to pay double for one? And it all comes down to, because this has been marketed in a particular way, it's for a particular market. And this has been marketed in a particular way, it's for another market. And if you're someone who wants a Nissan, but you're in the Tesla showroom, you're just going to think it's expensive. If you're looking for a Tesla, but you're in a Nissan showroom, you're just going to be like, this is shit. This is not what I want. So actually, it's about trying to figure out like who the target market is and then get in front of those specific people. And if you can do that, then you can become the niche in that field. So an example is, okay, imagine this, you're doing podcasts so you're doing podcasts right now. Imagine that you did podcasts just for entrepreneurs. So then you'd have all the entrepreneurs on it, like Stephen Bartlett does. Imagine that you specifically are doing podcasts, but instead of having entrepreneurs on it, you had, wrestlers, for example. Right, great. So who else has a podcast with just wrestlers? Nobody, probably, or very few people. Great. So that means that all the wrestlers are going to come to you because there is no other ones. And even if there are the podcasts which talk about wrestling, your podcast is only wrestling. So all the wrestlers know they need to come to you. So an example we use in my industry is we look at property investment. Imagine that I am a policeman, or I used to be a policeman. Just imagine. If I used to be a policeman and now I brand my service as property investment for policemen. Just that. So now, if you come to me and I say to you, what's your profession? And you say, I'm an accountant. No, sorry, we don't do that. No, he can pay me and I can help him because it's just the same service, but we just say no. And what we do is we just go after just the policemen. Then we get known as the people for policemen. And that means that policemen or policewomen, whenever they want to invest in property, guess where they're going to go? To me. And that means that supply and demand, I can charge more because the number of people coming to me is higher. And that means that I could, and so the first is that you're not charging enough. The second is the reason for that is because you're not niching. You are trying to sell to everybody. I think another mistake that people make is that they want to make money today. So they play the short game. And really what I've learned is not just entrepreneurship, but life. Life is a long game. Like we're here for, as I said to you earlier, like, you know, you'll be working, most people will be working for 40 years. Why can't we be an entrepreneur? Why are we trying to make all the money in the first year or in the first 5 years or in the first 10 years? You're going to be doing this for a long time. If you enjoy doing it, you're going to do it for a long time. And you're doing it because you enjoy it, not because you have to. And when you do it, then you really want to realize that there's such a thing as compound interest, which means that imagine this. Imagine that I'm helping people to invest in the property market in the north. The longer that I stay here, the more that people are going to become aware of me and the more that they're going to tell their friends. So if all of my clients tell one friend, now I'm going to have loads more clients. If they tell another friend, then I'm going to have loads more clients. And it just continues to build on and on and on. So if I'm here for 10 years, in 10 years time, I'll have loads of clients. Why? Because everyone's going to tell one or two people, and by definition, I'm going to have more. That growth you only get if you keep doing the same thing. But if you keep splitting around and doing loads of different things, which in the beginning you might have to do that, but eventually you want to kind of just do one thing and do it really, really well. Because if you do loads of things, no one will know what you're actually known for. So yeah, I think that the answer is you've got to play the long game because there's a lot of compound interest in that.
Yeah, no, I understand. And is there any other mistakes as well along with that?
Yeah, so well, there's, like I said, we've made loads and loads of mistakes. One of the mistakes that we made was like exactly that, like just thinking that we're going to get to the end of it. That one day, you know, we're going to make 100 grand and it's all going to be amazing at that point.
Yeah.
And like I said to you earlier, like you make 100 grand and then you're like, oh, I just have more problems. And you make 200 grand and you're like, I just have more problems. And you just get more and more problems and you realize, okay, cool. What I have to be comfortable with, and this is what all entrepreneurs I think have to be comfortable with, is realizing that your job is to solve problems. And actually the only reason that you get paid is because you can solve problems that other people can't solve. A lot of the time I was like, why can't my team just solve these problems? Well, if they could solve it, then they wouldn't need me. They would be doing what I'm doing. So the reason why I'm here is because I can solve problems that no one else in my team can solve, or none of my clients can solve. And at the point where I can't solve those problems anymore, then I'm not going to be valuable anymore. So I won't have a business anymore. So I've got to keep upskilling myself and going out and looking for the problems, because if I can solve those problems, then I'll keep adding value to the stuff that I'm doing. But through the entrepreneurial journey, there's been loads and loads of issues. So one I told you about is with the finances. The other one was about you know, we had this team and we were doing all this stuff, but we didn't have enough clients coming through the door. We're like, how are we going to get these clients coming through the door? And I realized very quickly that I needed to, like you're trying to, I need to get my name out there. I needed people to know who I am. And so what I then did was I built a profile on social media and I started posting regularly. And that was really, really good. And that's how I solved that problem. And then as soon as I solved that problem, the next problem was, okay, well, I posted something and now there's loads of people who don't agree with me. And there's, you know, you could say haters. Everyone's hating on the post, right? And the fact, what I've learned is, if you don't have haters, you're not playing a big enough game. You have to have haters. Otherwise, that's how you know you're doing something worthwhile. And like every time I post, I just get at least a few people, if not loads of people, that just like, that's not right. That's not what it is. Right now, I'm saying to people, you should invest in property right now, October 2023. Why? Because I'm fairly certain that the house prices next year are going to go up. And so if you don't do it now, you're going to wait until next year, but then the price will have gone up. And then you'll be like, oh, I don't want to invest now because I could have bought it last year for 20 grand cheaper. Why do I want to buy it now? And then you're not going to invest next year. And then the next year will go up again. And, you know, you'll be up. So it's like when the prices are going up, you don't want to buy. You'll say, I'm going to wait until they come down. When they come down, you're like, I don't want to buy. They're down now. People don't want to buy. Why? Because they might go down more. So you just have to get involved and bite the bullet and do it. And I think a lot of the time people are just, you know, they're scared. And this is the whole thing about success and failure. It's like when you realize that failure is on the route to success, it's not behind you and success is in front of you. That was really good. But yeah, there's been loads and loads of challenges I think that we've had along the way. And we've slowly but surely, sometimes, you know, it's hard to even know that you're in a place that you that you shouldn't be in, or that you need to solve this problem. It's hard to even know that there's a problem that's come your way. So earlier this year, there was I was like, oh, there's a problem. The problem is that we're not, because of the market's change and whatnot, we haven't got enough leads coming in. I was like, okay, fine. And I just sat there like for like 3 weeks, and I was like, I don't know what to do about this. I don't know what to do about this. And I just kept thinking to myself, I don't know what to do about this. And I wasn't trying to solve the problem. I was just trying to, I wanted someone to come in and solve the problem for me. I was having a pity party for myself. Eventually, I was like, I need to go and solve this problem, because guess what? Nobody else is coming to solve this problem. My favorite quote is, let me just try and remember it for you. It was, life is 100% your responsibility. No one's coming to save you. Act accordingly. And that's what I've learned, is that no one's coming to save you. Everyone's got their own problems to worry about. And if you think that one day someone's going to come in and give you all the clients, or give you the money, or give you whatever it is that you don't have right now, that's just not how it works. Like, you need to save yourself. And that's been a really important lesson for me.
Yeah, and like looking back at your journey, is there anything like from all the knowledge now, is there anything you would have like changed or done differently?
So, they say like all of the challenges, all the things make you who you are. So I think there's definitely some element of that. I don't think there's anything that I would have done differently, but what I would say is to turn that question around on its head, which is like, what's been the key to our success? What's been the one or two things that we did that's made us successful? And I'd say my top tip to everyone is, you're the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. There's a famous saying, you're an average of 5 people you surround yourself with, and people don't realize how important that is. If you are spending all your time with this kind of person, you're probably going to become like that kind of person. They're going to brush off on you. That's just how it works. Whereas if you're spending time with this kind of person, you're going to become like this person. So just make sure that you're spending time with people that are lifting you up. And there's such a thing called, so people are either drains or they're radiators. In a house you have a radiator. What does it do? It radiates heat. And then in a house you have drains. Drains take water away from the house, right? So they suck heat in this instance, or whatever. They suck energy away from you. You can either have radiators or drains. And in school, especially in school and those younger years, our friends are people that are in our school, in our year group, in our class, and whatever. So we don't really get to choose them as much. As we get older, we get to choose them. And what we have to do is choose consciously, who do we want our friends to be? Are they drains or are they radiators? Are they people that, when we say to them we've done something really well, do they mock us, or do they support us? If they support us, that's who we want to be around. So absolutely, you're the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. Choose wisely. That's my first top tip. And the second thing is, going back to what we were saying about hustle, is the second one is execution is everything. People are always worried, oh, someone's going to steal my idea. The problem is that you can steal the idea, but you still have to execute it. And that's why now they say a lot of the time, when I put stuff on social media, I'm always worried. Well, when I was younger, I used to be worried. Oh my God, if I'm gonna tell people like how to like search for properties and whatever, then why are they going to buy my service? Because I've told them all the information. People don't pay for information; they pay for implementation. So we give all the information away for free, because the fact of the matter is, everything that we do in our business, I've already put out on social media. I said, this is what we do. This is how we do it. I can tell everyone. Fact is, out of 100 people, only one person is going to do it. 99% of the people are not going to do it. And so implementation and execution is as everything in this game. Like ideas, they say ideas are a dime a dozen. Everyone's got them. But implementation and execution is really, really difficult.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to finish off, I remember, I think when I met you, you said, I think if you gave me, feels it 100,000 or something,
Yeah.
what would you do with it?
Yeah.
So I want to ask you the same, same thing.
If you gave me 100,000 right now, what would I do with it? I would probably find some way to give it away. And the only reason I say that is because, I'm in a privileged position in my life where I don't need 100 grand. I can I can genuinely say, like, everything that I want, I have. Yeah. And anything that I don't have, I can buy if I want to buy. I don't want a supercar. I don't want to buy a private jet. I'm not talking about those kind of things. But I'm talking anything that I want, I can buy. If I want new traders, I'll buy new traders. If I want to go on holiday, I'll buy the holiday. So I think if someone gave me 100 grand, investment aside, if I couldn't give it away, I'd invest it. If I could give it away, I'd absolutely give it away. And I think when I say give it away, it would be to people that are deserving, and people that have just been, dealt a hard hand. There's loads of people out there that need help. So that's definitely what I do. And your one of your follow up questions might be, who would you give it to? One of the things that I use, that moonshot planner that I told you about earlier, to figure out like what's important to me. And I always thought, before I used that, it was just last week I did it. It took me 2 minutes or 5 minutes. Before I used it, I thought that my why, the people that I really wanted to help, was young people and I wanted to teach them about financial education, financial literacy, all the stuff that we've been talking about today. What I realized was it's not so much about financial education, because people can figure that out at some point in their life. What I'm really passionate about is realizing, everyone needs to realize, you spend most of your life working, so you might as well do something that you enjoy doing. And there's so many people out there that spend their lives doing stuff that they don't like doing. And the only reason that I'm an entrepreneur is because I want to spend more of my time doing the stuff that I like doing. So when I say to you, I only want to work 20 hours, it's not because I don't enjoy what I'm doing. It's because there's so much stuff that I want to do outside of work that I really love doing. And I just don't have the time to do all of it. And I get to choose every year. Do I want to do more work? Do I want to do less work? Do I want to work on this thing? Do I want to work on that thing? What do I want to work on? So I realize for me, it's helping young people figure out what their flow is so that they can do more of what they want to do. And I think that maybe my 100 grand would go into, in a small way, you heard of microloans. It's giving people a small amount. You take a loan, but it's only going to be like £1,000 or something like that. So giving people £1,000, so that people can use that money to buy themselves some time, whether it's 4 weeks or 4 months or whatever, so that they can go and use that time to figure out whether the thing that they're thinking about is actually going to work. So a bit like what you're doing right now with this podcast, it's like, okay, well, you're in a privileged position where you can afford to do this. A lot of people can't afford to do this. Great. Here's £1,000. That gives you a month off work. Perfect. Now try something. And they try it and they fail. That's fine. But a lot of people don't want to lose their own £1,000. So lose my £1,000.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, no problem.
What we'll do, we can put a link to your social media and your company's website as well.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Like more than happy to talk to anyone about properties, passive income, investments, all that stuff. But main message from this is invest, of course, invest, but also like find the thing that you love doing, because you're going to be doing it for the next 60, 70, 80 years. In fact, most people who are born like in the last 20 years will live to 100. So you're going to do this for like 80, 100 years. You might as well find the thing that you love doing now.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. That's a wrap, everyone. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.